Can we get some decent recruiting news around here?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Brian Smith. Thank you for joining in on Locked On Seminoles each and every day for your first listen. Truly appreciate you stopping in and talk some Noles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. As I said in the opening, can we get some good recruiting news around Florida State football? I'm thinking we will. The notes that I've got today, there's some positives. There are some more negatives because I tell it like it is. I keep it real. I have some negative news too, but there is some positive today. And by golly, that's what I'm going to start with. The 21st of September, if I remember right, is the date. There's going to be a couple guys announced. Clardy, the DB out of Pensacola, and Byron Lewis, the running back out of South Florida. He plays at American Heritage. They're both going to announce. Florida State's going after both. Both are highly contested players. Schools all over have offered them. This is what I know. Clardy, I believe, is going to end up signing with Ole Miss. Until otherwise proven, that's my pick. But that being stated, this is recruiting. And he lives in Pensacola. He goes to one of the area high schools that's tradition rich, etc. I doubt Florida State has missed on him. They've went after him. But the way they've started, it's a concern. Ole Miss is the team to watch, and they just obliterated their first opponent. I'd imagine that, or the first couple, I'd imagine you're going to see Ole Miss do pretty well with recruiting for the next few weeks because they're off to a pretty hot start, and a lot of these kids are basing at least some of their decision off that. But we'll see. We've got a couple weeks before everything gets completely over with. I don't know what to say if you start losing kids from the Panhandle to Ole Miss, but it is what it is. The other kid, though, Byron Lewis, I think is going to go to Florida State. Everything I've heard, we're leaning that way from my source today, but we'll see. I don't think Miami is prioritizing him. They're pretty deep at running back. The other main competition is Wisconsin. They're kind of an outlier to try to figure out. They've gotten a few kids from Florida the last year and this year, so they're a threat. But a South Florida kid that grew up watching Miami and Florida State, chances are he's going to stay in state. That's, again, prove me wrong, but that's what I've heard. Now, what does that mean for Florida State? Well, a couple of things. Number one, might as well get the other side piece out if you haven't already heard. It sucks, but Jalen Lucas, the running back, slot receiver, do-it-all player for the Noles, although it wasn't announced exactly what it was, is out for the season with an injury. He's got 2 more years of eligibility because he can use this as a red shirt. Keziah is going to be done. I would assume Tofili's done, unless there's some kind of waiver I don't know about the NCAA. And you're also going to be in a situation, you got 2 young running backs, Danzy, Cam Davis, and the Rodell is going to be done, I believe. So you got some flux. Could Byron come in and compete? Absolutely. He's a kid I know pretty well. I've known him since the end of his freshman year. Really athletic player, catches the football well, changes direction, understands how to use his vision to pick up yards quickly or slowly as he makes time for the blocks to translate into opening holes. So he's just a good player. He's been coached well. I mean, he's from American Heritage. So I'd expect to see a lot of good things go Florida State's way if they can get a couple of victories. We're going to talk about Memphis here in a little bit, but this is the area I need to really break down. I did 2 podcasts with recruiting on Sunday. Neither one of them were in the friendliest of manners. Well, wait a minute. One was Saturday, one was whatever. But back-to-back days, they got guys decommitting that are big-time players. This is what I know about them. I want to give a little more because I dug into that. And then, again, we'll get into Memphis here in a few minutes. You cannot lose Myron Charles, and then the next day, Hilson, the defensive end, arguably the best pass rusher in the country, from Cocoa, one of the programs you should be able to recruit, etc. It is what it is. Now, from what I was told, he was thinking about backing off his commitment a while ago just to make sure. But nobody's going to sit here and tell me, and Hilson's a good kid. He's real honest. Very, very nice young man. Excellent student, the whole 9 yards. Nobody's going to tell me that the 0-2 start for the Noles didn't impact his decision to go ahead and do it. he was planning to make his decision to back off after the season, just kind of let things play out. But after the Noles lost their second game, a few days later, he decided, oh, maybe not. Maybe I'll just back off. I've been told that Texas A&M are heavily involved. Those are two schools with big NIL. Those are two schools that have really tried to start making inroads within the state of Florida, have had some success. Cedric Baxter, the running back for Texas, who's unfortunate for him, is out this year. It's Edgewater kid in Orlando. Texas A&M's got Shamar Stewart, South Florida kid. Those programs, with their money, with being in the SEC, they can definitely get a kid to flip. So I know he's backed off, but Hilson really likes Florida State from everything I've been told, from him talking to me directly, face-to-face. I'd be surprised if they weren't in it till the end, but the Noles need to win to get those kind of guys. Chicken and the egg, because you need to win to get the players, but to win, you need the great players. So it is what it is. But the defense has plenty of talent, by the way, for Florida State. They need to prove something now. That's my opinion on it. So we'll see. But Hilson is a guy you can't lose. Charles is a D tackle you can't lose. This is not a good trend. So on that theme, here's the other not so favorable news. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody here, so I wrote down a couple of names. Both the receivers that I'm about to mention would be very big losses. Dalen McCutcheon's out of the Dallas area. He's going to visit SMU. Confirm that. CJ Wiley, the wide receiver out of the Atlanta area, plays at Milton. Tremendous receiver that Florida State won in an upset. Watch out for LSU and watch out for Georgia. They're both involved, and CJ's a guy that he's big time. So losing those kind of receivers, especially with what we've seen so far this year, that's a no-no. McCutcheon's a little bit smaller, shiftier guy, around 6'5", 5'11", makes all the catches. He's well-trained. He's from Dallas. You can tell he has been honing his craft for quite a while. I think he can play earlier than most receivers at his size because he's been through it. Dallas is tremendous for high school football, and the tutelage there is top-notch. Everybody you're going against has got a trainer or been doing it forever. Football is very, very important there. So they put their money where their mouth is. They got the oil money and they spend it on football. So facilities, trainers, everybody's got something as an advantage. So it doesn't matter if it's an inner city school, suburban school, private, whatever. They got something. I think McCutcheon can play early. I think he's a little underrated. Some of the scouting services have him in the 200s. I think he's better than that. Also, I've been told, you just got to look at it from a broader perspective. I'm like, what do you mean? My source, it's like there isn't anything sure with a lot of these schools. And by the way, this isn't only a Florida State problem. Every school that has stunk the last couple of weeks, Auburn, NC State got obliterated by Tennessee. I started turning that game on, and that immediately ended. They were down 51-10. I turned. I'm like, good Lord. Auburn, Notre Dame, they got beat by Northern Illinois after beating Texas A&M. This roller coaster stuff, you're going to see kids, decommit around the country. Florida State might pick up somebody else's guy. You never know. And you're also going to see guys just take visits that you didn't necessarily expect. Losing impacts recruits faster than it ever has before. Ever. Used to be it takes another year to the next cycle. That is not the case any longer. So with that, when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. But Florida State needs to center their plan for recruiting a little bit. I'll talk about that for a couple minutes, then we'll get into Memphis. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. All right. Hey, Locked On Seminoles fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do, Ultimate College Football Head Coach. This amazing game allows you to step into the shoes of being a college football head coach. Imagine coaching the Noles and maybe doing a little better than what the current staff is doing on this game. From recruiting players, making sure the scholarship roster's right, setting your staff, and even handing out the scholarships to the key guys right down to number 85. You are the person in charge. And here's what you should really love about this game. You're responsible for calling the offense plays. I'm sure a lot of people think right now they could do better in Florida State to that point, and you would have your chance. All you got to do is download the game. So Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free, no ads, 100% offline if you want it to be. You can play on the go when you want. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Seminoles fans. Use the promo code Locked On College Football, all in caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Download the game. Just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Download it today. All right, this is what I think about the plan for Florida State, or at least the way I would look at it. While I never agree with abandoning your own team, recruiting is on a teeter-totter point. In a very bad one. You lost 2 big-time recruits. You got other key recruits taking visits elsewhere. You're 0-2. Everybody's laughing at you. You need to stop the bleeding. And it's not like a cut. It's like somebody chopped you off at the elbow. If Florida State does not have a good week to 2 weeks, and a lot of it I know we're not going to hear about because it's private conversations, but if this staff does not knock it out of the park in recruiting with convincing kids to come back to campus, committed or otherwise, this is for anybody. I don't care what the commitment status is now. I trust nothing after an 0-2 starting guys starting to flip to other schools. Nobody. So committed or otherwise, they need to be on the phone, prioritizing relationships and getting not only the player, but the parent, the coach, the brother, the sister, the entire family of the Joneses or whoever, whatever the name of the person is, get them on campus. Now, you need face-to-face meetings. You need to back it up. You need to put up and shut up as a staff. If you do not, you're going to watch on signing day as this class wilts. Right now, I believe they're ranked 41st by rivals as a class. In the month of September, during any given year, Florida State should never be ranked 41st in the country in recruiting. Never. Now, they're in on a ton of kids, and I talked about they were playing the long haul with how they did the visits in June, and it worked pretty good. But then they started 0-2, and it just backfired. Lost 2 big-time recruits from your backyard at critical positions in a year where you need those positions. Just double whammy there. And they've got guys visiting elsewhere. I'm sure there are others. I only know of a few, but this is getting close to DEFCON 1. Florida State loses to Memphis, you're going to see the wheels fall off of recruiting. Mark it down, guarantee it, lock it up. And right now, I don't feel like they're going to beat Memphis. Prove me wrong. Why would I believe they are? With the way they played, I don't believe much of anything. I doubt a lot of you do either. That being stated, they had better absolutely lock up visits, unofficial, official, whatever, get kids back on campus. We're going to know based on various reports coming out, kids doing interviews with different people, their social media posts, inside intel that I get and other people, if Florida State is really going to finish this class the way it should, or if it's just going to be a whimper. And of course, part of that is how they do on the field as well. But you make weekly recruiting calls, you're constantly contacting the guys that are already aligned with your program and decided to come and take the scholarship. And then there's everybody else that you're in on. You've known them for a long time. This isn't like you're building relationships. These can be 5-minute conversations that change the trajectory of not only the recruiting class, but the perception of the Florida State football program. No time to miss. Not a single phone call, not a single text or anything can be missed. Florida State staff doesn't have the best rep right now in recruiting over the last couple of years. I've heard too many things about guys on the staff just being so-so recruiters. There can't be any so-so. There can't even be above average. There can't even be good. It needs to be elite, at least for the next couple of weeks, at minimum, or they're going to be in trouble. Just saying. With that, I want to transition to Memphis, talk a little bit about their defense for the rest of the show. This is a team that, quite honestly, I was a little surprised. I watched a little film. They are a decent football team, but I didn't expect them to be, shall we say, not nasty, but like just as timely as they are. I'm going to read off a bunch of stats, and I'm going to leave some basic ones towards the end. But I want to start off with something that's pretty interesting to me, because when you think of dominant teams ranked in the top 30 or whatever, overall defense, etc., you usually think, okay, they got 1 or 2 first-round draft picks. They got a sophomore who can't turn pro after this year, but he's an NFL guy, this, that, and the other. But sometimes you just have teams that have a couple NFL guys or whatever, maybe later round, and then they just play with chemistry and they just don't give up big plays. Kind of like Iowa does. Like they'll have a few NFL guys every year, but for the most part, they got guys that just don't miss tackles, run gap fits are good, etc. I only watched a little bit of Memphis, but I'll have to admit, they're pretty good. Here are the base stats, and I'm going to start off with what I think is the most important stat. And you can take this any which way you want, but I don't think of Memphis as a team that gets this very often. And I bring it up for two reasons. Number one, it's an important stat, but it's an area Florida State hasn't exactly been killing it at. I'll go into that momentarily. Tackles for loss. They're 25th in the nation. It's not dominant. They have 16. And I know they played Northern Alabama and Troy, just so-so teams. But they got 16, so they're consistent, penetrating, and making plays in the backfield. Correct me if I'm wrong, Florida State's offensive line has moments where it's just a sieve. Why would I believe they're going to be consistent with keeping the Memphis Tigers out of the backfield? To that point, I'm just going to preview a couple of guys. Patrick Lucas, 6'2", 320-pound nose guard. And then William Whitlow, a 6'2", 260-pound defensive end. They run a three-man front, big guy in the middle, kind of a Georgia-style defense. Both those guys I'm going to come back to. If Florida State struggles with them or anybody else up front, and they're running odd and even doing different things, it'll give you some problems because you're not used to practicing it, not used to seeing it. But if Florida State struggles with those guys, it's going to be a long day because those are their guys. They're going to be here all day. It's going to be that kind of a party. I'm sure you've seen that old video from the NFL. But this stat with the tackles for loss really concerns me. So here are the other rundown for Memphis defense. Rushing deep, 84 yards a game, 34th in the nation. Passing defense, 134 yards a game, 29th. Total deep, this is impressive, 218 yards given up per game, 17th in the land. Scoring 8.5 points, 18th. Tackles for loss, as I mentioned, 16 for 25 in the country. Third down conversions, pretty solid, but still not as good as some other teams. There are a lot of bad games going on. They've given up 12 of 31 conversions, 38.7%. That's only 87th, but it's not like it's a terrible stat, honestly. Red zone, they've only given up one touchdown and only 2 attempts in the red zone. So they've kept teams out of the area where they could make the easiest scores. They were ranked 56th there. Far as interceptions, they've got 2. That's 29th. So, I mean, you look at the stats overall, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Oh, one other stat. I talk about this a lot with Florida State need to do this. Well, they're not allowing a lot of it. Passes of 20 or more yards. They've given up a grand total of 4 in 2 games. They're 22nd. Memphis, pretty good there. So Florida State's got their work cut out for them. They get behind the chains on some of these plays. I got a couple of DBs I'm going to talk about here in a second. So before I talk about the individual players, one quick thing, and then they'll go to break and get into them. Florida State still has to attack, no matter what these stats say. They've got to attack. No more just dink and dunk behind the line of scrimmage. If you're not willing and openly discussing it publicly, this is something I'm now kind of going to with a bunch of these schools, Florida State included. If you're not going to talk about, we're going to throw it down the field and we're going to take it to you, if you're not going to have some swag, how do you think DJ and those other guys are going to be? You need to process it. And if they can't do it, then it's just over. The season's going to be a disaster. Teams are starting to crowd the line, blitz like crazy, and the receivers aren't getting it done. They're not. And part of it, the O-line, even if they do get it done, there's guys open, and DJ's running for his life every now and then, because that's not helping. He's obviously dirted a few, overthrown a few, and of course the one he missed in the end zone against BC was a disaster. But there are a lot of problems they have. I guarantee you, Memphis, especially with those big guys up front, they're going to come up and challenge you on the early rundowns. You still got to find a way to run the ball. DJ's not going to win the game throwing it 50 times. He's not good enough. You got to find a way to do it, but you also have to hit some shots early in the game. If Florida State comes out and just does what they did against BC and throws on every first down, that won't work. I enjoy the aggressiveness, but the receivers aren't good enough. They got to mix it up, and they got to catch them out of position to get chunk yardage plays. They got to get busts. They got to make them move. They got to do shifts. They got to do motions. They've got to scheme it up more than they have even before. And Norvell and his staff have shown that in the past. But if they don't run the ball well on first down, that stuff won't be easy, because 3rd and 7, where they're in cover 4 playing the sticks, good luck. That's where you don't want to be. So when I come back, I'm going to talk about a couple key guys from Memphis and the matchups that Florida State better win, because if not, they don't win those matchups, they're probably not going to win on the scoreboard either. That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. Have you gotten a 5-hour energy lately? 5-hour energy shots give you the feeling of alertness and energy you need to get in the zone each and every day. No sugar, convenient, portable size, and it's the perfect pick-me-up for wherever you're at, on the go, doing whatever you got to do, to-do list, workout, whatever it may be. By the way, they are pretty convenient, literally. Convenience store, grocery store, gas station, wherever you may go through a checkout line, you can find 5-hour energy. They also have a lot of different things you can get off their website, 5hourenergy.com. Flavors like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and several others. You can even order different packs and line them up how you want, 12-pack, 24-pack. Pick and choose how many of each that you would want. So all you have to do is go to 5hourenergy.com. That's number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-hour energy product. You can use promo code LOCKEDONCFE to receive 20% off your order. This offer is valid only through the 30th of September on one order. It cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good with subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. So who do the Memphis Tigers have to worry about besides the big guy in the middle? And again, his name's Patrick Lucas, 6'2", 320. Not going to make a ton of tackles. Going to eat up space. William Whitlow's probably going to make a few more plays. But here's the thing. They're going to rotate some guys. They're going to give you some problems. But we've talked enough about the run game. Let's talk a little bit about the passing attack. They've got a couple different guys that have done pretty well defensively. Javion Ross got 6 tackles, half tackle for loss, 3 pass breakups, and a pick. And I pulled up Pro Football Focus. They've got, they're not like unbelievable in pass defense, but it's better than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to share my screen here for those of you on YouTube. I'm going to read off some stats. This is pretty interesting to me because I honestly thought they were going to be pretty basic on defense and probably had at least one guy. You're like, oh, we're just gonna destroy this guy. Coverage grades for guys that actually have quite a few snaps. Chandler Martin, a linebacker, is really good. That's not a good sign for the Noles because they like to throw the linebackers a lot. They're probably going to try to get him on the best running back in the game in one-on-ones if they're going into pass D. He's at 72.7%. That's pretty good. Cornerback, Tylan Taylor's only played 5 reps, but he's at 72%. A.J. Watts, this is one of their key guys. He's at 71.9. That's pretty good. DJ Bell, he's played 11 snaps. He's one of the first guys off the bench, 70.1%. But then you get into some of the other guys that are really key. Greg Rubin, over 60 snaps, 69.8% in pass coverage. And then you got Javion Ross, a guy I mentioned a minute ago. He's at 63.5, so he's probably a bit of a risk taker. He's leading the team in pass breakup, so that wouldn't surprise me. Maybe Florida State can get him in what you would call a little bit of a double move and catch him and get him over the top. I know that I would look at it that way because Florida State, again, I don't think they're going to, quote unquote, just make it happen, moving down the field 5, 8, 10 yards at a play. They need to hit chunk yardage plays. They need to get busts, double moves, shifts, motions, doing anything they can to get leverage. It's going to be very key in this game. Moving on, 46 total plays in pass coverage, 10, or 31 in coverage, 46 plays on the field for Matt Hudson. He's at 62.3. He's an edge guy, so he's one of those outside linebackers. Maybe they can get some plays in the flat. That's just okay. It would be nice if Florida State's linebackers and running backs had some big plays in this game. Take a little heat off Malik Benson and everybody else. I mean, they got a lot of receivers they've rotated in, but nobody's really taken the bull by the horns, to put it mildly. So find a matchup like that, and maybe you can hit it. We'll see. Julian Bennett's another corner that comes off the bench. He's 61.8%. Maybe they can get him. That's not great. So those are some of my thoughts about that. To wrap up the show here today, a simple thought. Florida State, like anybody else, they've got to find their own competence as an offense. They've struggled. That's not any news flash. But at the same time, I think that they really have to find a way to make it happen in this game and just kind of force it through. I'm worried about them beating Memphis, like legitimately. If I had to pick, I'd pick Memphis. They got the better quarterback by a mile. They're dropping dimes again this year. He's throwing short, long, running when he needs to, doing little things, extending plays. He's annoying to play against. So your offense better come out and be a balanced attack, including deliberately throwing the ball down the field, not to back the safety off, but to make plays. Not just throwing play action, but having a definitive plan that can work with the players you got. Right now, it's just not the same as it was last year. There's no Johnny, there's no Keon, there's no Jaheim to bail you out with a one-handed grab or jumping over a guy, making two guys miss, stiff-arming somebody and running 50. It's about technically finding a way because they don't have the playmakers like they did last year. Who otherwise prove it? Maybe Brown or somebody else steps up. I don't know. But right now, Florida State is a very mid-level ACC team at best. That's all they are. So they need to figure this out. And it starts with the offense this week, in my opinion, because I don't care who they play this year. Memphis is going to score some points. They've got some good players. I talked about it a little bit. I'll get into that a little more on Wednesday, Thursday, talk about their offense. I want to watch some more film, talk to a few more people, but I've already went over Seth Hennigan quite a bit. So to keep up with him, Florida State needs to score minimum 30 points in this game. Minimum. Are you confident Florida State's going to do that with the same game plans they had against Tech, against BC? I'm not. So I'm in show me mode with that as much as anything. Run the ball on first down a little bit more, please. Be effective at it. It mix up the passing game some. They got to do something different for DJ to get him comfortable because he looked like a guy that did not want to be in uniform. He didn't. It was a week ago. He just didn't look like he wanted to be there, and Florida State needs to figure that out. So if the Noles don't get him going, it's going to be a problem. We'll see what happens, but check out tomorrow's show. We're going to be back at it, talking some recruiting, talking some Noles football. I will see you tomorrow on Locked On Seminoles, and make sure you check out my guy Spencer McLaughlin on Locked On College Football next. He's got all the rundown from the upsets and everything over the weekend. It's been pretty wild. If you got some more time, check it out, Locked On College Football. Everybody have a good day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.